This next guest needs no introduction. He's already laughing, and we haven't even started the segment yet. By the way,
Yes.
we've got him on Zoom, and he's wearing eye black for the segment. I've never seen anything like Robert Garcia, who's showing up for the NFL draft in our yearly conversation, sporting eye black. I think that is terrific. Congratulations. Good to see you are getting into the spirit of things here for the NFL.
Well, I'd love to say it's eye black, but it's actually for the bags underneath the eye. So we're both getting, it's really sad how old both of us are getting.
It is.
Right? I think about this. This is crazy. Like almost 30 years doing this stuff.
I have bags. I don't care. It's simple. I'm not wearing some kind of cosmetic eye patch or whatever that is. What is that supposed to do to your bags? What does that do?
I think it's supposed to like moisturize them because they get like dried out. These things are $10 a pop. $10 a pop.
Wow.
How expensive that is.
How long does it last? Are those things reusable, or is it a one use only?
Oh, one use only. That's it. One time, and then that's it, and you're done.
Okay.
You wear it for about 20 minutes, pop them off. So I'll pop them off in about 10 minutes for you. We'll see how good the bags look after that.
Is this the first time you've ever worn those things?
Oh, no, I've worn them before.
Has it worked?
Underwear. Yeah. Look, there we go. There's one coming
out.
Oh,
my God. You have a wardrobe malfunction. One just dangled. I mean, people don't know this because they're not watching this. They just dangled right off in the middle of your conversation.
Well, because you're making me laugh, and I'm small. It's almost like the little bloodsuckers. What do we call them? The little you put on your. Come on, Steve. You should know
Eels?
these things. No, eels are big and long. Leech, yes, it's a leech. It's a leech sucking the blood out of my face.
Congratulations. I told Adrian, I said, hey,
I got one.
Here's what I said to Adrian. I said, you know what? If you want to get on this conversation, you got to get on the Zoom call. Now, normally it's just me and the guest, but because it's the NFL and Adrian's going to put his mock together and shoot for
here we go again.
Oh my God.
Adrian's going to put his mock up.
Do your best. He's going to have his mock up in the morning. And he's going to be shooting for you. Adrian, do you understand that this is what we all strive for in life, to be like this man who now has one eye with that looks normal and the other eye looks ridiculous?
I guess this is what you got to do to become the NFL draft guru on SportsTalk. So, hey, I got to get the eye paint on my end too.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
We're gonna have to hand over the mantle one day to Adrian. I'll have to tell him all my insight, how I figure these things out.
You gonna give him your secrets?
Yes, I'll give him my secrets.
Okay, that's good. That's really good. In the meantime, you're still dissecting things. You put your top 40 list up earlier, which is terrific. It's on the website right now at 600ESPNElPaso.com. You had it up yesterday, and I'm sure for you, just putting the finishing touches on your mock draft, right?
About halfway through. I mean, Denver was nice enough to make the trade today to pick up Teddy Bridgewater, and it's interesting because I think you look at Denver and you look at Carolina, and I think both of them are playing bluff right now. I think Atlanta at 4 is where the draft will. Well, I mean, everybody's saying San Francisco at 3, but I think San Francisco most likely goes Mac Jones if they take Trey Lance. After that, if Trey Lance falls, there's a good possibility that Atlanta could take him, but I think they're all geared up on Kyle Pitts right now. And from what I'm hearing, although I don't know my mock draft will say this tomorrow, it feels like Trey Lance has picked up a lot of steam with the 49ers. I think they knew what they were getting with Mac Jones. They attended both of his pro days, but they also attended both of Trey Lance's pro days. And I think what they wanted to see in that second one is how does he really relate to their offense? I mean, does he understand exactly what Kyle Shanahan wants to do? And I think for me, Trey Lance is my favorite quarterback. I like him better than anybody else in this draft. I think he's got this upside. I love the fact that he's had to develop himself. I love the fact that coming out of high school, he was, being recruited as a linebacker, as a safety, and so on, and then did what he did out in North Dakota State. And the mental makeup is what I love. I love guys who have to truly work for it. And that goes back to last year. You think about Joe Burrow, couldn't get it done at Ohio State, ends up going to LSU, and you see the type of player that he's become. I'm going to take this off so people can take it serious.
Thank you. You look, I can't even begin to tell you how ridiculous you looked, and I'm really, really happy you did that, so thank you very much.
So you look at Joe Burrow, who I think Joe Burrow is a better quarterback going into the NFL than is Trevor Lawrence this year. Lawrence may have the body. Lawrence may have the flocks. Okay, he may have the hair and so on. But I really look at both quarterbacks that went last year in Herbert. I want to say Abear. You know, we're old. I grew up with an Abear, okay?
Yes.
I just know an Abear who played for the Saints. So Herbert, you look at him and you look at Burrow, and I actually believe those guys were as good, if not better, especially in Burrow's case, than what Trevor Lawrence is coming into the draft this year.
All right. By the way, I've never seen this before, but in all the years I've known you and worked with you, your hair is the closest to Mel Kiper it's ever been before.
I'm not losing it though, Mel's. That hairline's receding back on him.
No, I didn't even know you could grow that kind of hair, to be honest with you, because you've always kept it so short all these years. I'm looking at you right now, and I've never known that you even have the ability to grow hair.
It's the COVID coif. I think the last time I had hair like this, I may have been 16, 15, something like that. But yes, it's the longest I've had it in almost 40 years.
The women love it?
I don't get out enough to know, but some have.
Okay, there you go. Hey, by the way, you've got Kyle Pitts 1B and Trevor Lawrence 1A. In your draft top 40, which is up on the website right now, 600ESPN how close do you really think these two are to each other in terms of just overall value?
I've got them dead even. I mean, when you look at Kyle Pitts, and everybody keeps talking about him being the best tight end prospect ever. You hear Kiper say it, you hear McShay say it, you hear all these people talk. I don't agree as far as if you're encompassing everything that a tight end should be, he's not that, because good luck putting him over a defensive end and expecting him to block a D end as that D end tries to get to your QB. So that's one thing Kyle Pitts is not. He's not a blocker. He's not an inline blocker. He's a guy that you can develop. He's a guy that you can have rub off on a blitzing linebacker or a guy, have him try to seal the edge on a D end or something, but he's not a blocker. Now, as a pass catcher, this guy's insane. I mean, I remember him when he was a high school product up in Pennsylvania. I wanted Penn State to get him. He didn't go to Penn State. He went down to Florida, and the kid has just continued to get better and better. Early on in his Florida days, he had a couple of dropsies here and there, but he has just become automatic as a wide receiver, just a guy that's just not going to drop the ball. I don't care who you match him up with. I mean, Derwin James is the only guy I can think of in the NFL as far as safeties go who can probably match up with them. And then even then, good luck, because this is a guy as a receiver who I believe you can put him in so many different, you can put him at the slot, you can put him outside, you can do so much with him that it'll be interesting to see if Trey Lance goes 3 to San Francisco. I think Atlanta then takes him at 4, and it's going to be phenomenal. If they don't get rid of Julio Jones, the weapons that Matt Ryan's going to have, and I think you can see maybe one last push to a Super Bowl run for the Falcons. I got
where do you put the comp for Pitts? Like Tony Gonzalez?
No, I keep saying Evan Ingram, but a lot better Evan Ingram. I think of it's really hard because I think when you look at Gonzalez is a capable blocker. He wasn't a phenomenal blocker, but he was a very capable blocker. I think he could get there. Who was the kid out at I'm forgetting the kid who played out at San Diego, who was a great pass catcher.
Antonio Gates.
Not Kellen Winslow, Antonio Gates. So not the build that Gates had, but just the athleticism. I mean, you look at Kyle Pitts, you look at that body, it is just athlete personified.
Well, Gates was a former basketball player too before he went into the NFL. So you're right. That's the mix. All right. I know Adrian is chopping at the bit for questions. I do want to get to Twitter as well. Nik Poppy wants to know, not on Zoom right now. Well, you can't be Nik Poppy. We didn't invite you to Zoom. You're going to get to watch this later, but this is just for guests and show hosts only. He wants to know, is Robert wearing a Vikings jersey?
I'm too fat to wear the one that I had. So if I was wearing it right now, my man boobs would be screaming coming up out of my chest. So no, I can't wear the jersey. And I got a beautiful, authentic Adrian Peterson one when I went up to Minnesota a couple of years back. But the body's a little bit too engorged right now to fit into that jersey.
Well, those authentic jerseys are cut tight, so you don't have any room for anything. So good luck there. All right, Adrian, you're next. Go ahead.
Mac Jones, number 25 on your big board right now. You said that you project him still to go to the 49ers at number 3, the way it stands right now. What came of that evaluation right there? Why is he the 5th overall quarterback in your big board?
Just the way he processes. So, I mean, one of the big things and one of the knocks on Justin Fields is that He doesn't do what we always talk about this. Can you throw guys open in the NFL? I always bring up Vikings as a great example. But Christian Ponder, who I think went number 12 overall to the Vikings, the reason he failed in the NFL is that you have to trust your wide receivers. You have to understand once you get to the pros, and this is why, Tom Brady's a GOAT, you have to throw guys open. You also have to have a clock and understand 2.5 seconds or less, I got to get that ball out. So the one thing that you worry about when you look at a Justin Fields that you don't worry about with Mac Jones is, can you get rid of the ball and can you understand where the receiver is supposed to go? Instead of watching the guy and seeing if he gets open, those windows are gone once you get to the NFL. You can do that in college football. You can't do that in the NFL. And when you look at a player like Mac Jones, he understands not only how to process when he gets to the line of scrimmage and read that defense and understand where he's going to go, but he also understands how to throw to those windows. And you look at what not just this year, you go back to last year when he had to play for an injured Tua. I mean, the kid produced. I mean, for a guy who just sat there and waited for his turn, he produced. I understand athletically he's not a beautiful thing to watch run, but he also understands how to work a pocket. And I think those are the strong points that you have. Athletically, yes, he does lack a lot there, and that's why I have him lower as far as my overall athletes, overall prospects. But as far as processing, there's nobody better right now at that quarterback position coming out of college.
All right, next question. This comes from YYS, Yin Yang Samurai. His question for you is this. Every year for the NFL draft, there's a player that's supposed to be a top 10 pick, then slips to the middle or sometimes the end of the round. Last year, it was CeeDee Lamb. Which player does Robert see possibly slipping tomorrow?
So I think two players. I mean, we've already talked a little bit about, we haven't talked about it, but everybody's been talking about Farley, the cornerback out of Virginia Tech, who, when healthy, probably is the best overall cornerback in this draft, but he's had 2 back surgeries now, so you wonder what's that durability going to be. But I think Micah Parsons, the linebacker out of Penn State, and Micah is a very, I don't want to say eccentric, but he's just got a very different personality. And from what I've been hearing and what I've been reading is that personality hasn't meshed really well with a lot of GMs and a lot of coaches. He's very vibrant. He's very what's the word I want to say buoyant, but that's not the right word.
Is he kind of aloof a little bit?
Not aloof, just a big talker, just a guy that's always at energy and always talking things up. And I think that sometimes rubs people wrong because they think that he's not really working. But you look at what he did. He left Penn State, and you look at the shape that he got himself. I mean, first off, he's in great shape anyway, but you're talking about a guy that I thought would run a 4.5. Now, he ran that 4.39, I think it was at the Penn State Pro Day, to see that type of speed. But the way he diagnoses, this kid doesn't miss tackles. I mean, this kid is a dynamic linebacker, and I think it's going to be really interesting because I think he could fall out of that top 15, which, for me, he's the best defensive player on the board, and it's not even close. I mean, he gives you everything at that position as far as defensive ends, safeties, corners, defensive tackles, linebackers. He is the best prospect at his position and the best defensive prospect in this draft. But I think he slips because of just the interview process has not been a big win for him.
We're back with Robert Garcia and continuing our NFL draft conversation. Tweets continue to come in as well. 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter. YYS, thank you, Robert, for the NFL Draft Insight. Every April of every year, this is what I look forward to. Also, Nik Poppy with a follow-up. Robert was one of our founding coaches in '93 for the FZFL. Garrison Hurst was our #1 draft pick, but was sitting out. Robert still picked him, even though he was sitting out. How about that?
Probably lost that year.
I bet you did too. Hey, if you want to tweet us 600 ESPN El Paso, you can follow Robert on Twitter at Draft Cheese. You know, I remember when I was so proud you broke 100 followers on Texas Trinity, and then it grew and grew and grew. Then you became political. We forced you into a new Twitter handle just for football, and now we've got to grow it all over again. It's like we've planted this seedling, and now we got to get Draft Cheese to start growing.
Yeah, we can get it growing. I feel bad because I'm not going to lie and act like I'm sitting there, churning out information like Mel or Todd or Daniel Jeremiah or Matt Miller. But, when it comes around draft time and all that, I'll throw some things out there. I'll throw some things, before the start of the season when I speak with you or something. But it's not. It's just they're more for fun than anything else, you know. But I love the draft. I mean, we've always talked about this since 1987. It's crazy how long I've been obsessed with this thing.
I know. By the way, this comes from Cesar Cubillos on Twitter. Holy 2004, he tweets. I'm listening to Sports Talk again, and Robert is back. Will the next guest be Quentin Martinez, and will we be getting a wrestling show from the Monster? And then he had to throw an RIP Dave from the Lower Valley. That's true. Yeah. The great Dave from the Lower Valley, who owned a mobile car wash and would call us and always have fun. We lost him, but that is Cesar Cubillos, who thinks that he's in a time warp listening to you right now on the radio.
Oh, I miss Q. He brings up Q, and Q's doing some great work out there in Corpus Christi, and love reading his stuff that he posts online. So
please, Jeff Flint is out in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Here. We got Q out there right now in Corpus. It's fun to see some of the former cohorts on Sports Talk and what they're doing right now, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, all the different things they're doing, and as far as work-wise, I mean, I think about how many people in El Paso I knew, not just radio-wise, but also TV-wise, and just seeing all the different places that they're at, what they're doing, and I mean, some of these people we're talking are on national TV, and it's just kind of cool.
Now, you mentioned Micah Parsons before we went to break. Yeah. I said, was it yesterday? I think when or Monday when Sean Lee retired, could the Cowboys trade down and grab Micah Parsons and be the heir apparent to Sean Lee at the linebacker spot?
I mean, I don't like that fit because they've already got two great linebackers in Van Der Esch,
yes,
and Van Der Esch and Smith. And I just think that this team has a need at cornerback, and it's going to be really interesting to see who they go with, if it's going to be Surtain or if it's going to be J.C. Horn, because they're two different type of cornerbacks. When you look at Horn, he's that typical old school physical guy, likes to get out there, likes to extend the arm, likes to really get into a wide receiver. And then you look at Surtain, who just, to me, he's more of a jack of all trades. And I think he is better suited to play that different style of defense in the sense that he can, he can go out there and play in a cover two. He can come up and press if he needs a press. I think Surtain's the guy, but I mean, you could be surprised and see them go for a Parsons, but they've got too many needs in that defensive backfield. They've got to fix that if they're going to do anything defensively next year.
We say that every year, but if there's a great offensive player on the board, you know how tempted Jerry gets when it comes to grabbing that player. Look at last year with CeeDee Lamb.
Hey, Kyle Pitts will not be there at 10. And outside of that, if you're talking wide receiver, I mean, you could go offensive line. I love Vera Tucker, the offensive guard out of USC. He's actually my favorite lineman in the draft. I mean, as great as Penei Sewell is and as great as Slater is out of Northwestern, I love Vera Tucker. This is a guy that can play either guard position, can play tackle. I like his movement skills. I like the fact that you get fresh tape off of him because he played last year. I think that's an option because that offensive line is getting old, and you could go out there and refortify the offensive line is what made this team. I mean, what they invested in this team, and Martin and Smith and all the people they drafted up there, is what made the Cowboys have that resurgence. But that defense is just so putrid. You got to do something to fix that defense, especially the defensive backfield.
If you had your pick at defensive backs, who would you go with?
I like Horn's attitude, but I'm going to go with the safer pick, and I'm going to go with Surtain.
Okay. Adrian, you got a good question, fantasy question regarding wide receivers as well.
Top three wide receivers in any order that you'd like. It's probably Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Waddle from Alabama. But right after that, it's so interesting. That's probably one of the most fascinating parts is who's that next number 4 wide receiver? Is it Kadarius Toney from Florida? Is it Rashad Bateman from Minnesota? I mean, who do you have, Robert?
So Tony, so first of all, we got a lot of Smurfs, although Tony is the biggest of the Smurfs. I think we have got 3, and I'm going to pull my list up here because I'm already getting to that point where I'm starting to forget everything I'm saying here. I think when we look at those wide receivers, Kadarius Toney, just what he can do on the football field for you. First off, he can be a back out of the backfield. You can put him in the slot. He's tall enough to where if you want to put him out at the outside, you can flank him outside. I think he's probably solidified as that number 4 guy. But then you bring up Bateman, you bring up the kid at LSU, although he just had some injury issues come up, and he got flagged a little bit when it came to his medical because he's had some injuries in high school. Also had a couple at Louisiana. with the University of Louisiana, but Terrence Marshall, thank you. They finally came to me. But I think Marshall could be in there, but I like Tony. I mean, what you can do with him and how you can move him around. He's not as dynamic as Tyreek Hill up with the Kansas City Chiefs, but he's a guy that can do a lot. I think Waddle maybe projects there a little bit more. Waddle's actually a name that a lot of people are talking about, and don't be surprised to see him be that number 2 wide receiver go behind Jamar Chase.
Okay, let's get back to quarterbacks for a second. We've talked about the 5 guys ad nauseum. When do you think we'll see the next batch of quarterbacks start to go after that?
I mean, everybody keeps talking about Mills out of Stanford, and I think you see him go in the second round. I know Kellen Mond has been getting a lot of pub lately, but I'm not going to lie. I'm just not. To me, the drop-off is steep. The drop-off is steep after the 5. You have so little tape on Mills out of Stanford, and am I saying his name right? It's Mills. You have so little tape, and even though everybody keeps talking about what he did in high school, well, all he's done in college is be injured. So and the guy's out there with 2 knee braces. Yes, he throws a great ball. Yes, he's a big. I mean, he's that what you look for in that quarterback. But I'm not sold on him as far as the durability question. And then when I look at Kellen Mond, and I watched a lot of A&M football, and I hate saying it, but I never saw the big jump that I was expecting. Especially with the coaching that he had out there now. I never saw that big jump, and that's what worries me about Kellen Mond is that, I mean, will he get a shot? It's so tough because even when we talk about the top 5, how many do we actually believe are going to make it? It's probably going to be 1, 2. I mean, every year we talk about all these great quarterbacks, and we see the majority of them be busts. So it's so hard to hit at that position and truly hit at that position. So I'm not a fan of what's left after the top 5 quarterbacks we talk about.
All right, and yet you still think there's a big drop, really, even in the top 5, right? I've heard a lot of people say that they believe Justin Fields is closer to Trevor Lawrence than any of the other 3 quarterbacks are to Fields. Do you agree with that?
Athletically, yes. I mean, athletically, but I just think that nobody has the arm than your future Jet. Zach Wilson. Yeah. What he can do with his arm is just disgusting. I mean, and you see these guys, the Jeff Georges of the world, the Aaron Rodgers of the world, just the guys who come out here, and he can throw in so many different platforms.
Patrick Mahomes.
Was funny. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes. Thank you. And it was funny because remember when Mahomes came out of Texas Tech, a lot of people were like junk. I watched a lot of Texas Tech football because I'm here in Big 12. Well, yeah, it's still the Big 12, Big 12 country, and. I still had my question. You knew athletically he had a cannon. You knew he could throw it 100 miles if he wanted to. And I think when you look at Zach Wilson, the 2 big things that I worry about, A, smaller pocket, because he played in a big pocket this year. He played in a wide pocket. So now that pocket's going to tighten up. How does he handle that? And then 2, just the speed of the game. I mean, he's got the arm, but it doesn't matter how strong you are. Again, we always talk about that. Can you throw where the ball needs to go? But he does stuff that the throw that he did at his pro day. And it was funny because you saw Fields try to go out there and mimic it. And you saw Jones try to go out there and mimic it. They didn't do the same thing because they did the whole spin out rollout, but they threw going with him, which is so much easier as to where when Wilson did it, he threw going away, which is just rips your shoulder out, which is just insane to what he did. But I think that's what's going to be really interesting to see is how he adjusts to the speed, and is he going to get nervous in that pocket because he didn't get touched much at all this year from BYU.
Robert Garcia back with us right now, our NFL draft guru. This coming in on our mobile app powered by United Bank. This is from Wyatt 6 Jacks in Las Cruces. Love hearing Robert. Been a fan for over 25 years. Glad he has done well. Still sad when he left the 915. Great job, both of you. Coming from our pal Wyatt.
Thank you, Wyatt. Appreciate that. Appreciate that very much.
It's very nice. It's good to see you're still getting love after all these years, even though some people still
Texas.
Think, that's true. Texas, That's true. And by the way, your appearance really tests the loyalty of Sports Talk listeners, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
How many years did you work with me on Sports Talk?
Oh, come on. I don't know. We worked forever.
90s. When did you leave? When did you leave for Tucson?
Yeah, I was gone a year. I mean, that was nothing. I mean, right. I've been out here for about 11, almost 12 years now. That's been the gap. Yeah, but no, we worked for the longest time. I mean, whether it be Crunch Time was the best though. That was the best. Crunch Time, not Sports Talk. Crunch Time was the best.
First off, people don't realize this. One day it's 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. I'm at the radio station. Crunch Time is starting, and Robert's not here. And I call, and you were still home. You forgot about Crunch Time. You had such a late night. You forgot about the show you were supposed to be co-hosting with me.
It wasn't late night. I was working. At one point in my life, I was working 4 jobs, and the radio was part of it.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, think about it. At one point, I would do the morning show with Buzz. I'd come do Sports Talk with you, and then what do we prime time?
Remember, it was like nighttime, like it was like nighttime crunch time.
Yeah, nighttime crunch time with Andy and with the monster, and I'm not gonna lie. At that point in my life, I never wanted to talk again, and I wanted to be shot by the end of the day because it was 24/7 sports. It was crazy.
I hear
it was fun though.
All right. We know 1 and 2 tomorrow. What we don't know is 3 for sure. If you were the 49ers, there's different options they could go. They could go Jones. They could go Fields. They could go Lance. Where do you think they end up and why?
I feel like it's most likely Mac Jones. And the reason why is because I really believe they burnt that bridge with Garoppolo. And I think you see him get traded after the draft because you have to love what Kyle Shanahan saying. Because, hey, if we're all alive come Sunday, then he may be on the team. Yeah, I mean, I don't see Jimmy being a guy that's going to sit there and say, well, let me prove myself this year, and then I can go somewhere else. I think just like any elite athlete who has an ego, I think he believes he's already proven himself. So if he's going to try to force his way out of there, I need a quarterback who can start now, and that's Mac Jones. I think Trey Lance is a guy that would take time. And I don't think you want to throw him out there and have him have a bunch of setbacks, which we know nothing more, kills a rookie quarterback than going out there and failing. So I think Mac Jones is a guy that's ready to go in there and step in. So my belief is because of the Garoppolo situation and the fact that I don't believe he'll be on that team, come the start of the season, I think they go Mac Jones.
Do you think Belichick trades up to try to get a quarterback like we've been hearing a lot over the last few weeks?
I think it depends on the quarterback. So if Mac doesn't go at 3, then I think he starts making that move. I think if Trey Lance is there, I think he starts making that move. We know Wilson will be gone. We know Lawrence will be gone. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Fields, because I early on I was thinking he's a Georgia kid. I was thinking the tie-in with Atlanta and so on. And he's a guy that you could bring in, you can you diagram some special packages for him, and he would just develop and do what he needed to do behind Matt Ryan and his humongous contract. But I don't know. I worry when it comes to quarterbacks. Yeah, Fields could be that guy that slides, and it'll be interesting to see who jumps on him because Denver and Carolina were 2 teams that people thought they might make a move. But if I'm Carolina, and even though I didn't give a whole bunch to get Sam Darnold, how do I invest that and then all of a sudden draft a quarterback? That just doesn't make any sense. And if I'm Denver, now I've got Bridgewater and I've got what's the name from the kid out of Missouri who's played there 2 years now. I can't remember his name, but I've got a young quarterback who I need to continue to develop. How do I go draft another one? I mean, we're talking about a 2-year starter. That's what's just become insane from the days when you and I started this decades ago. Is quarterbacks don't get 2 years anymore.
No.
And you've got a team that is developing in Denver. They're starting to come together. You got a bunch of young, good rookie wideouts, but give the guy a break. Let him go out there and get a little seasoning before you dump on him. So it's just going to be super interesting to see what happens because I think New England has to have a fit, and I see it either being Trey Lance or I see it Mac Jones. I'd be really surprised if they jumped up to get a falling Fields.
Continue our conversation right now with Robert Garcia. Follow him on Twitter at Draft Cheese. That's at Draft Cheese. I still can't believe that Twitter handle was available when you grabbed it. I figured somebody would have been.
I know. No, and I love it. I love the handle, and I love my little photo that's up there. And while I've got, I think last I checked, 34 beautiful followers, I still love that account. Maybe
it's grown since this show started.
We'll see.
Let me see.
Hopefully at least 2 more people.
You're now at 43 followers.
Hey, hold on. Who is calling me right now? Stop calling. What in the world's going on?
Oh, they can't be calling you during the interview. They have to realize you're with us on Zoom. All right, Adrian.
I'm like Shefty. Hold on a second, Steve. The Raiders have just traded.
Adrian, let's get back to you. We got about a little less than 10 minutes with Robert. Let's finish strong.
How bad of a defensive tackle edge rusher draft is this right now? It seems like it's pretty bad. Christian Barmore is the best defensive tackle right now out of Alabama.
Well, no, most people I guess it depends on what you want out of that position, because Levi, and I'm not even going to try his last name, out of the University of Washington, is your more prototypical type defensive tackle, can maybe play some 3 technique. The thing that scares me so much about Christian Barmore is that he has a great ceiling, but when he came into Alabama, he immediately got into Nick Saban's doghouse. And then second, you just see he's not done the body work yet. I mean, when you look at most of these Alabama players, when they come out, especially D tackles, you've got some bodies on there, you've got some big honking arms and so on. Barmore would scare me to death because he can do things and he can explode when he wants to that, not a lot of other defensive tackles can do. So that entices you, but there's that, that whole record as far as how hard is he going to work for you and what's he going to do. Nixon, the kid out of Iowa, I think, and I just bear with me with the names, but Nixon's a kid who's a self-made player who I think you could see him in the 2nd round, possibly 3rd round, and he could come in and do something in the NFL. But it is a weak draft along the defensive line because you've got question marks, either attitudes, you've got guys who are 1-year players, you've got Jalen Phillips, a defensive end out of Miami who played at UCLA, he's got concussion issues. You have concussion issues, defensive line is probably not a good position to be playing.
Who are your favorite prospects right now in this NFL draft?
Well, I love Micah Parsons because he's a Penn State player, but I know. I just when I'm looking at these, I love Jamar Chase. I think Jamar Chase, Anquan Bolden, a little bit of Beckham, and a little bit of Steve Smith. I think he can do so much at the wide receiver position. Offensive line, as I mentioned, I love Vera Tucker, but I think Penei Sewell as a 20-year-old. He's a 20-year-old kid right now. He's just a kid. I think he's got a ceiling where he could explode as far as what he could be at defensive tackle. And then I like J.C. Horn. I just love. DBs have to have attitude. Like DBs have to have attitude, and he's got attitude. And then I love Morig, the safety out of TCU as well. He's another kid that I like a lot. I think a guy who will transition very well into today's NFL.
Are there players you don't like that you're just kind of like, you think that they're overrated heading into this?
Well, all the defensive linemen. And it's funny who you talk to, because when you look at what Mel's got and you look at what McShay's got, and they've got Jalen Phillips up there, Rusu, the other defensive end who sat out this year for Miami, and then you start talking about those players, and it's all so much potential. And we know what the failure rate is at defensive end. We have seen so many DNs fail once they get to the NFL because you've just got to be on all the time, and these guys get away with that phenomenal body. You look at Jalen Phillips; he's got an incredible body. Ran I think 4.4, 4.5 at his pro day, but just long, lean. He's got the arms where he can extend, get inside the offensive tackle's chest, do the things that you want to see those DNs do. But the consistency and the question marks. I just don't like any of those guys. And as far as I think about other positions. It's on defense. It's just not a great draft. Like Christian Barmore, we just talked about him. I worry a lot about what that mental makeup is, because he's got all pro type ability, but what is he going to bring to the football field? What is he going to bring to the locker room when you draft this guy?
How about running backs? Any potential superstars that are just, we already know what the running back position is being valued at. Everybody pretty much feels they can grab running backs every year, and very few players will be paid what they're worth. So you tell me, you look at this class, how good is the running back class?
I love Najee Harris. I love this kid. He is, for me, the one running back that 100% needs to go in the first round. And I love what he does. I love the juke that he has for a guy that is as big as he is. I love his hands coming out of the backfield. Travis Etienne out of Clemson's another one. Both the kids at North Carolina, Williams and Carter, I think both those guys are going to transition well. I think you'll see one back maybe go in that first round, maybe to Pittsburgh, and then you'll see a run in that second round. You'll see all the other kids coming off the board because there's some talent at the top of the draft. It's a position that just doesn't, have the value that it had 20 years ago.
It's very true. It's also a position that doesn't pay anything. If you look at the value of what teams are giving running backs versus every other position, it's incredible to see how far that's fallen.
Well, and that's why, and again, where's the game shifted to? Wide receivers. And this could be the best draft ever when it comes to wide receiver. And, Adrian was talking about it earlier. Rashad Bateman is a kid who I love out of Minnesota. He didn't have as big of a year as this year because he sat out, came back, and just never really got into a swing. But the year earlier, I looked at him as a possible Justin Jefferson type player. I think he can go out there and run any route, play inside, play outside, do so much for you. He's big, he's tall, has great hands, ran a lot better time than I think people thought he would run when he did his pro day. There's just so much depth at wide receiver, and that's what the game is now. It's 7-on-7. That's why all these quarterbacks come in and they do what they do. That's why all these wide receivers have gotten so good, because the advent of 7-on-7 started about 15, 20 years ago, and you see how much it's changed the game offensively in the NFL.
Absolutely. All right, Adrian, you got one more question for Robert before we wrap things up. What's it going to be?
Philosophy-wise, how difficult is it to evaluate this draft class? Because of what you just alluded to, Robert. I mean, guys sitting out last year, medicals still not being, coming in for some of these teams and some of these guys. How difficult is it right now to evaluate these guys?
Oh, it's super hard because, first off, why did they sit out? And it's interesting because Jamar Chase will be a top 5. Well, okay, I'm not saying top 5, top 10 pick. He just didn't want to play. I mean, he said, why am I going to come back and just play a couple of games and just stop in the middle of the season? Because he was like, I just don't really want to be here. I don't want to risk it. But what was the reason they sat out? And then what did they show after they came back? And we see guys, we talk about it year in, year out, especially quarterback position, but we see a guy who looks like he's peaking on his junior year, decides to come back for his senior year, and all of a sudden we have that drop off. So I think that's going to be fascinating. Adrian is watching that first round and how many of those guys who opted out start to slide, because I'm here. I hadn't heard a whole bunch up until this week, up until draft week, that supposedly some of these guys are going to start dropping out. And it's just because people don't have the fresh tape. And GMs and coaches, they want you to bleed football. They want you to rather play football than go see your dying mom in a hospital. And I'm being serious when I say that. So when you have guys that opt out, unless they had a great that is a big knock on them this year.
At the same time, it also means that one team, like in terms of Chase, could get a big value if somebody that sat out is suddenly starting to slide.
Big time. Oh, yeah. And, we talked about it with Micah Parsons. He's the one that I keep going back to. But somebody like him. But, Russo, Russo, when he played not this year, because he didn't play this year, but the year before for Miami, I mean, he shined. I mean, everybody started talking about him being a top 10 pick. Problem is he didn't have that second year to back up what he did 2 years ago. And I think he's somebody who could slide, who could be a big time boom if you draft him in the 20s or maybe early second round. It'll be really interesting to see, where he goes. And I'm forgetting the name of the defense tackle at LSU. Big kid. It's going to be interesting to see where they fall, because I think we see second round on them, and then can they produce it? Can they get going once they get in the NFL?
Robert Garcia, follow him on Twitter at Draft Cheese. Let's get you up to 100 at least at Draft Cheese.
I got lower goals. 50. Let's get to 50.
All right. Well, listen, your original handle has done very well for yourself, and you have a lot to thank, and one individual in particular, but we will get to that later. In the meantime, look for Robert's mock draft up on draft day at 600 ESPN I know that's what you're going to be working on tonight.
Yes, I'll be sending it to you tonight and post it tomorrow. And then Adrian can just, throw darts at it and do what he wants to do and tear it apart.
It is always great having you on the show. Thanks for the insight, and thanks for giving us such a great hour of talking draft. We always love it.
It's always great coming back home and chatting with you guys.